I started out trying to be a professional tennis player. So I got accepted into university to do marine biology, which I had zero interest in. And I also at the same time got sponsored by Adidas and Nike to play tennis and head as well. So I went and played professional tennis and I was awful, just awful. I didn't win anything. I didn't really achieve much at all. I had a ball. I did it for 18 months. I had the best time, and but I was so bad. So I realized I wasn't going to make any money. So I quit, sold all my rackets and trainers and stuff that I was being sponsored for, and went and tennis coached for a period of time, which I really didn't enjoy. I'm not a good natural teacher. I found it very frustrating. Every week people come back doing the same thing they were doing the week before and not improved, and I just drove me nuts. So I ended up going into finance. I didn't enjoy finance at all. I went to work for NatWest Bank in London, and I really didn't enjoy it. And there was a lot of continuous study, which I'm not a studious person. As you know, I'm dyslexic, so I struggled with that. And I wandered into a recruitment company in London to try and find a job. And they said, "Why don't you come and work here?" And I was like, "Sure." And that is how I fell into recruitment. And 25 years on now, I have obviously founded and sold 2 businesses, and I'm now in my 3rd business, the Lunch Group, which is a recruitment business. But yeah, I worked in London and here and across all sort of different aspects of recruitment, but it was a purely by chance scenario that got me in there. I think the worst career advice I ever received was that my school, I forget what they were called, career counselor or whatever, did all these tests on me and essentially came out that I should be a fireman. So I looked into it, and it didn't take long. Within about 10 minutes of looking into it, I found out that I was too tall, because you have to be within a certain height range. You have to be within 5'8" to 6'2". So that's probably the worst advice from a very basic form. But I also think people telling you to do what you love for your career, I don't agree with that. I think you should keep what you love and love doing it. I think if you do it as a career, it can often ruin that. And I think what you need to do from your career, and I think the best advice I've ever had, is to find out what you're good at, find out what you're not good at, and just focus on what you're good at. You know, there's a big myth out there that people say you should try and work on your weaknesses to bring you up to be more balanced. Well, the reality is if you don't focus on your strengths and you focus on your weaknesses, so you're like that, you end up being like that, which is pretty average. Whereas if you focus on what you're good at, then you end up being up here, which is epic at whatever it is you're good at. And I think that's probably the best career advice I've ever had. If you're an entrepreneur, the easiest thing is you just go and employ someone to do what you're weak at, and that's so much better. So it's a really simple, much quicker, and they're good at that, let them focus on that, let them become really good at it, focus on what you're good, and you become really good at it, and then you have a team that is really good at everything rather than one person who's average at everything. So it's very, when you look at it that way, it seems obvious, but people often just don't explain it that way, and they go down the wrong route and they end up being okay at everything. I think you have to try everything and mess up and make mistakes to learn what you, and be open enough to understand that you're not good at it, and be happy enough to let someone else do it. And that's probably the hardest thing to do, is to work out what your weaknesses are, understand it, and be comfortable that you're terrible at that. Like I was terrible at tennis. I think for me personally, and this would not be relevant to everyone, I am a very high energy person. I don't know if you saw, I posted on LinkedIn this morning, I did a personality test for one of my clients who's got this new personality test. And I come in the 98th percentile of energized positivity, apparently. So that's great for a lot of reasons, but it's also bad for a lot of reasons, in the fact that my attention to detail and my desire to get things done quickly, hence I work in the startup space, is really, really high. And I have made a lot of mistakes by rushing things and not going back and checking my work. And this counts for reading emails, reading things that I've written, anything that I put together, any kind of written document or anything like that I put together. I wish I'd learned that just taking the extra 5 minutes to go back and check something, whatever it is, ends up saving you weeks in time down the track. And I was always the one to get things done quickly, move, go. And I think age has probably brought me a little bit sense of, or maybe it's just time of understanding that I actually, by rushing things, I was costing myself a lot more time than if I'd just taken a little bit slow. It doesn't mean I should procrastinate, because I think that's a terrible thing as well. But I think just doing things in a measured, controlled way and getting it right the first time rather than getting it done first. That would probably be the thing that I've learned the most. I think it's probably trust in myself. I've had a lot of business partners that have all been awful in various different ways for different reasons. And I hope they don't see this, but I actually don't care if they do. But I think I have often brought people in to do things because I didn't trust myself enough, and it's ended up not working out well at all. And it has cost me time in terms of years. It's cost me staff members. It's cost me enormous amounts of money. So I think it's probably having a bit more belief in yourself. And I know you and I have talked about imposter syndrome. This is not the same thing as imposter syndrome. This is different. It's just having that willingness to give it more of a go. I think that's probably cost me more than anything. It's just that little bit of holding back. And that's an unusual one to say. There's countless others, but I think that's probably the one that I've done over and over again, and everyone hates making the same mistake more than once. And I have done that many times. No more. I think, honestly, my work ethic, I do. My father had an insane work ethic. I don't know if you've ever listened to some of the podcasts I've done, but my dad was put in some horrific situations where he was a dentist. He was a Harley Street dentist in London, as all my family were, going back to, you know, the 1800s or something, which is very lucrative. But he found out that he had a solid neck bone, and he had 3 kids at private school, and he was not allowed to practice dentistry anymore. And as a dentist at that level, there is nothing else that you've learned to do your whole life. And watching him be the first person to import rap music into the UK, and he's not a rap music person, and then to start about 16 other businesses and watch how hard he's worked, gave me my work ethic and understanding that if you really want to make the life you want, and he wanted to continue the life that we had as a Harley Street dentist, but with no job, you have to work your ass off. And I think that's probably the key thing. I'm willing to work, but I enjoy the work, even if I don't enjoy the work. And what I mean by that is, there are things that I don't want to do many nights, but I do them because I enjoy knowing that will get me the outcome. And I've seen it get me the outcome time after time after time. So I know it will, and I know it works. And I think that's probably the number one thing. Other than that, trying to treat everybody the right way is probably something that actually brings you more success over the long term than you can possibly imagine. And a lot of the success that I find now, that I find a lot easier than I did in my early years, comes from what I did in the early years in terms of the way I treated people.